Hi, I'm Ayan,
And I'm Sid.
and you're watching Every Car. So, this time we have something different, and we're doing top 5 hatchbacks.
So we have a list of top 5 hatchbacks that we thought were the best launched in 2020. So we've judged them based upon their engines, their pros and cons, their reliability, their practicality, and what we think of the cars and would we buy it.
So, this is something different, so let us know what you guys think of it and whether you like it or not. Before we start, please do consider subscribing to the channel, it will greatly help us out.
And please promote more family-friendly content like this.
Of course, and if you haven't checked out our last video, please consider doing that as well. With that being said, do you want to get into the first car?
Yep, let's get into it.
So, the first car that we have is the Mercedes AMG A45S. I think that we all saw this coming in terms of this had to be there. This is one of the best hatchbacks in my opinion, and one of my favorite hatchbacks. It produces about 420 horsepower, 450 Newton meters of torque from an inline 4-cylinder. So this is one of my favorite cars, and I think it's sort of like a sort of dream car for me as well, because I really just enjoy the idea of having so much practicality as well as having a fast hatchback. And some of the pros that I really like about the Mercedes is the Mercedes infotainment, so the MBUX system, as well as it's the most powerful 4-cylinder hatchback that you can get. So 420 horsepower coming from an inline 4 is a lot, and so for Mercedes to do that, it's like hats off to them. But some of the things that I don't like about the Mercedes is that, like, because it holds, of course, the Mercedes badge, it has a starting price without options of $93,000, which is kind of ridiculous in terms of hatchbacks, and is one of the more expensive hatchbacks out there. In terms of the practicality, the port is about 375 liters, and that comes right about where the 1 Series and the A3 are. Both the 1 Series and the A3 are about 380 liters, so you wouldn't see a big difference in terms of boot capacity. In terms of the back seats, I think they're pretty roomy, but compared to the 1 Series and the A3, if the back seats are going to be used a lot, I think you should really consider you should consider them more, because it can get a bit tight for people that are over 6 foot in the Mercedes. Coming to reliability, Mercedes used to have a really good reputation for reliability. So with the old G-Wagons, they were known to be really strong, mainly because they were military vehicles and they knew that they had to be robust. But nowadays they've kind of shifted away from that, and thus, like, although Mercedes aren't the most unreliable cars that you can get, they aren't the most reliable cars you can get as well. And so you should really keep that into consideration when making a purchase decision for a A45S, if you do consider that. And since it's a Mercedes, your maintenance costs can get pretty pricey. But if you have $93,000 to spend on a car, then I don't think those maintenance costs should really matter. In terms of whether we would consider it or we would buy it, I think we came to a mutual decision that we would buy it, and it's just because that there's so much tech packed into it. And it's so quick, and it's a hatchback, so you got almost everything: good tech, like good performance, and practicality. And I know it doesn't justify the $93,000 price tag, but it justifies it a bit. Sid, what do you think of the car?
I think as a hatchback, there are very few cars that can come near the A45S. It's too good of a car, packing so much power, and because it's so light and it's nimble, I bet it feels like a go-kart on the road. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. As we decided, we would 100% buy it if we had the money. For sure. Like, if you have the money, we highly recommend getting the car. It's amazing.
Okay, that's it for the A45S. What's next in store, Sid?
So for the next car, we have the Toyota GR Yaris, and the both of us love the car a lot. First of all, because of how it looks. Just the car looks so magnificent. Like, it's styled so well. Just the styling appeals to both of us a lot. And second, it's got a manual gearbox. As we all know, nothing can beat a manual. I mean, I love automatics. Like, I'm not one of those people who doesn't like an automatic gearbox, but it's a manual, so it's amazing. In terms of engine, it packs a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder turbo, and it has 260 horsepower and 360 newton meters of torque. One special thing about this 3-cylinder is that it's the most powerful 3-cylinder turbo ever made. It's a very powerful go-kart. So as pros, it it has the most powerful 3-cylinder turbo petrol car, and because it's a 3-door and it's a lightweight, it's a hoot to drive. It's just so nimble and agile because it's so small that driving it in the city, in and out of traffic, I bet is very easy. Second thing is its manual gearbox. It's just much more engaging to drive, and you're very involved while driving the car. The third thing is that it's got a 4-wheel drive system, and the 4-wheel drive system in this car is supposed to be very, very good. Like, you can have multiple modes where you can control how much power is going to which wheels, and so in sports mode you can have 70% to the back, 30% to the front, and in track mode you can have 50-50 half weight power distribution. So that is one very good thing about this car, that its 4-wheel drive system is amazing. So you can flick it out of corners very easily and it will listen to you. As per cons, because it's a 3-door and it's not a very big car, it's not very practical, and the rear seat space is also at a compromise, and because it's not a 4-door, you'll have to move the front seats to get in the back. I mean, you can do fairly long distances, but it's not a very spacious car, and it's not recommended if you want to do a lot of long distance travel with 4 people. You might want to consider the rivals for that, but it's got a manual gearbox, and it's a very engaging car to drive. Another con for this car is that its boot space is quite less because of the 4-wheel drive system. Compared to the normal Yaris, the boot space in a GI Yaris is much less. Another con that it has that I feel, or the both of us feel, is unacceptable is that it's not got a very fruity exhaust. It should. I mean, it's a hot hatch, and it's supposed to shout, and it's supposed to be in your face when it's a hot hatch. And I feel they could have made the exhaust better. I mean, I don't blame them. It's because of the government rules and the emission laws. Daily driving it, I mean, you'll have fun, but when it will come to carrying your stuff around, maybe you'll have a problem, but realistically, I feel like you can. It's got a boot capacity of just 174 liters, which is far less compared to a normal Yaris, which has got 286 liters of boot capacity. If you want a big boot, you might want to reconsider if you're thinking of this car. Now, if we come to reliability, I mean, it's a Toyota, and you can't go wrong with a Toyota. It got a reliable engine. Maybe because of the turbocharger, it has made the engine a little complicated, but again, I feel like it's an okay car in terms of reliability, and I don't think if you maintain it properly, you'll have any issues as such. Then, if we come to what we think about the car and would we buy it, I feel like as a hot hatch, it's an amazing car. Although it has a few drawbacks, I feel like its pros outweigh its cons, and if we had the money, we'd definitely buy the car. It is a reliable car, it's cheap to run and not very expensive to buy, and it's definitely going to hold its value for a long time because they're only making 25,000 of these because it's a rally car for the road. Definitely would recommend if you're going for it. Maybe not as a primary family car if that's what you're looking for. But if it's a secondary car that you're looking for yourself, maybe going to work and back, it's a really good car and you'll enjoy driving it. Ayan, what do you think of it?
I really like the car. Even Toyota announced in one of their launches, I think it was a Toyota Camry launch, if I'm not wrong. But in a Toyota Camry launch, they said no more boring cars. And then after that, they released the Supra, and then now the GR Yaris, which I think is pretty respectable out of them. And I mean, I guess if you can't the LC500, but that's been there for a while. Like Toyota has really been keeping up to its promises, and the GR Yaris is something that looks like such a fun car to drive around. And the fact that you have Toyota reliability mixed with a fun car is something that you don't really get a mix of really often. And so that's why I just think that it would be such a good car to have and such a good car to own, you know.
Very true, very true. Just the reliability part and the manual gearbox are the main driving points for me with this car.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
What do we have in store next?
So the next car that we have in store is the Kia Stinger GT. I think this car didn't sell in numbers as much as Kia hoped it would. There were Kia Stingers lying on the lots, selling for big discounts, and that's why it's there on the list, because they've become so cheap that it's such great value to have now. So the hatchback has a twin turbo V6 which produces about 368 horsepower and 510 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty fruity from Kia. And they tried making a pretty cool car that rivals the Germans, because the Germans have always been on the top of it. And so Kia coming in the market has really made it really interesting. Some of the pros and cons that come with this car. One of the pros that I really think is really important is the fact that the price is so appealing compared to the more German rivals, which are most centered around luxury as well as performance. It has the V6 powered engine, $45,000. And that's if you spec it out to the V6 option car. Some of the disadvantages that people might see with the Kia Stinger is, we all saw this coming, is the missing luxury badge. With Audi, with Mercedes, and with BMW, you're getting that luxury badge, that status badge of the German brands, while with Kia it's not so much. And the fact that Kia was trying to compete with such big brands like Mercedes, Audi and BMW, that's just what made the car not sell, is the fact that it didn't have the luxury badging and the luxury aspect to it. And since the lower price also shows when you go into the interior quality compared to the competitors is not that great, and so if interior quality and is important to you, then I think you need to look at other options. It has a 406 liter boot, which isn't that great compared to the BMW and Audi competitors, and so if again boot capacity is important to you, then you really need to look elsewhere. In terms of the rear seats are okay. It is much more spacious than let's say an A45S, but it's again not as spacious as an A3 Sportback or a BMW 1 Series. And so again, if those are your priorities, then you kind of need to look in other places. One of the places that this car shines is its reliability. Kia is known for its reliability, and so it's the same that goes with the GR Yaris, where you could really daily this car and not really worry about reliability. And since it doesn't hold that luxury brand status, it doesn't hold the luxury brand servicing, as you could say, and so servicing the car would be much cheaper at a Kia dealer than it would be a Mercedes or an Audi or BMW 1 Series. So yeah, those are some things that you could really consider, and if you're really conscious about the cost, then yeah, Kia is something that you should really consider. In terms of would we buy it, we came to a mutual understanding that we wouldn't buy it, although it's a really compelling car, and especially because of the heavy discounts that are going off the lot. It did not sell as well as Kia hoped, and that's been seen by boot capacity. It's not that great. In terms of the rear seats, it's okay, but doesn't really shine. The only place where it really does really well is in terms of the driving experience, and if that is what's most important to you, then you've got your answer. But what we realize is that interior quality, where you're spending about 90% of your time, is really important to some people, and if you're going to use it as a daily, you'd want all the amenities of having all the safety systems. And they've only recently, in the new 2021 or 2020 or the 2021 model year, have kept lane departure and all the safety systems as standard. And so if you're looking at a used model, just know that those safety features don't come. not having the luxury badge and things like that matters to us. But yeah, what do you think, Sid?
I think it's a good car for the price. It's got a good, powerful engine, and plus because it's a Kia, it's reliable and it's not very expensive to service it and stuff. At the end of the day, it's a Kia, and if I'm spending so much money, and it's not very appealing to me. It's a very good car. It's got a lot of tick marks, but it's not the most appealing car to me, and which is why I don't think I'll buy it.
I think you can really consider the car when it comes to when you're getting big discounts on it, and then that's when it starts becoming a more appealing car to buy. And so without those discounts, buying it off the shelf at MSRP is something that you really have to debate about in your head when you're competing with the German rivals.
I mean, if you're getting very good discounts and you're able to get the car for a good price, go ahead. It's a good car, and if you don't want to show yourself off too much, if you want something subtle, it packs performance, it packs practicality fairly well, so you can go for it.
Yeah, I think those are our verdicts on the Kia Stinger GT. So what is the next car in store?
So the next car in store is a Volkswagen Golf, the 2020 version. I feel like this was coming because the Golf has been in the market for I don't know how many years. It's just been very long since the Golf has been in the market and become sort of an industry standard. So in terms of engines, you get a lot of options. So you can get a 1.5 liter turbo with either 130 or 150 horsepower, to a 2 liter diesel with either 115 or 150 horsepower, a 1.4 liter turbo petrol with an electric motor with either 204 horsepower or 245 horsepower, or a smaller 1 liter naturally aspirated engines with 90 or 110 horsepower, and the 1 liter engine you can also get it with mild hybrid tech. Yeah, it's a very long list. So when we come to the pros, it's a very spacious car. It's easy to drive and maneuver around town. It's got a light steering when you want it. It's got a heavy steering when you want it. The petrol engine is smoother than the diesel, and if you're only going around town most of the times, I feel like you should go for the petrol. If most of your commute is just on the motorway, I feel like you should just go for the diesel. It'll give you a better average too. So if you get the petrol engine with the automatic gearbox, it's overall a very good package because the dual clutch transmission is a very smooth unit and the gear shifts are very seamless, and for around town driving as well as motorway driving, the automatic gearbox is a very good option. The mild hybrid tech also helps you increase the efficiency, and if you're looking for more and more mileage out of the car, I think you should go for the mild hybrid tech. It's got a very spacious boot. It's got a 380 liter boot capacity, which is very good for a car of its size and its segment. Its rear seat is also very spacious. Although you'll have hard plastics in and around the car, it's overall a very good package. Overall, it's a practical car, and its rear seat capacity may not be as good as a Ford Focus, but it's definitely better than something like a Toyota Corolla, and I feel like it's a spacious enough car. The low powered cars which have power less than 150 horsepower are not as comfortable as ones which have higher power, because the lower powered cars have a torsion beam rear system rather than an independent rear suspension. That makes a difference in city driving when the roads are not very nice. One more thing to keep in mind is that it's not the cheapest car in the segment, and if you're willing to spend the money, then it's a very good car. Otherwise, it's not the cheapest. It's not the cheapest car. That's all. So it's not cheap. What can I do? I didn't price the car. In terms of practicality, it's a fairly big, spacious car. It's got plenty of boot space. It gets a 380 liter boot space, which is very good for its segment. In terms of reliability, although a lot of the engines here are turbocharged and turbocharged engines are complicated, that may give you some sense of unreliability, but Volkswagens in general are reliable, and if you maintain it properly, I don't think it should give you a problem for a long time. What do we think of the car and would we buy it? As a car, it's been in the market for a very long time. It has a reputation of being a very good car, and most of the buyers just close their eyes and get the car just because of the VW badge. It's a car that's not very expensive to buy and maintain, so if you're looking for a Golf as a family car, 2 thumbs up. It's a very good car. You can definitely go for it. Overall, it will be a very good choice. If I were to get the car, I'd probably get the car in the style trim with the 1.4 turbo petrol with the electric motor, with the 245 horsepower motor. I feel like it'll be a peppy engine as well as an economical one. I feel like it'll be a good choice. Overall, it's a good car. What do you think of it, Ayan?
I think the Golf has been around for like a really long time now. So I think that it's a really good option, especially as a car enthusiast. Of course, we'd look at mostly the Golf GTI or the Golf R as our main options. And so if that's what you're considering, then I think like that they're really good fun cars to drive as well. But in terms of the competitors, so I think the competitors are themselves. Basically, the Audi A3 is a competitor, and so in that respect, again, if you're looking for luxury, the comforts, and all of that, then you'd probably be looking at the Audi A3. But if you're just looking for a driver's focused car, and again, if you're not looking to be all showy offy and stuff, then the Golf R is really a great option. And the fact that it's been around for so long tells you that it's been a great option.
Yeah, definitely. As a mark of them being for a long time, they've sold more than 1 million cars since they've started selling it. So it's a very good overall car, and you're looking for something that's not very expensive but practical and you can have some fun with it, definitely go for the Golf. So for the last car, we have something very interesting, and we thought we have to bring this segment in at least with one car, and that car is
the Honda E. So the Honda E is a more interesting option that we've come up with, and we just wanted to put it in because we found it to be such an interesting car. In terms of the electric motors, there are 2 electric motor options. So you can get one with 130 horsepower or you could get one with 150 horsepower. In terms of the range, you can get about 130 miles or 210 kilometers. Some of the pros of the car is that it's very quirky looking and it's so futuristic inside the car with all the 3 screens, and instead of mirrors there are cameras, which is very, very futuristic. And since electric is the future, they really did a good job with making it look like electric is the future, and that's how the future of electric cars are gonna look.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The tech part of the car is really appealing. So now when we look at the cons, at 130 miles of range, it's not an ideal electric car for long range driving. It's not got a lot of range. However, Honda did a research saying only 1% of people have a daily commute of over 100 miles. So it really doesn't make sense to have a lot of range when you can just charge it again and again every night. And if you plug it into a quick charger, you should have good range if you plug it in overnight. So it is a good car, but it's at the end of the day, it's not got a lot of mileage. Another con it has is that it starts at 26,000 pounds, and at that price it's quite an expensive small car. There are cars that have higher range but are cheaper. It is a good quirky car, but at 26,000 pounds it's a pricey one. And in terms of practicality, it's fairly practical. It's not a very big car. you won't have any problem driving it around town and using it as a daily driver, because it's got a fairly good boot and rear seats can be folded, so it's a practical little car. In terms of reliability, although it's a Japanese car and it's built by Honda, we don't know for sure how it'll pan out in the long run, because not a lot of people have run the car for a long time. It is Japanese, so we think that the car should be reliable, but we really have to wait and see what the results are. Although it's an electric car, I don't think you should be worried about maintenance too much, because unlike normal cars, you don't have to do oil changes and stuff to it very regularly. I mean, it doesn't have anything to change oil. So although it's a good little car, it's got good tech and it's a very good looking car. At 26 to 29,000 pounds, it's a very expensive car, and it doesn't have that much of a range either.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, spending that kind of money, you really have to think about it, because you're spending about 26,000 pounds on a Honda, and that's not something that you hear of very often. And so you really got to consider it. And it's the first electric car by Honda, so you really don't know how things are going to pan out in the future with electric cars. Although the screens, the cameras, everything looks so cool, because with petrol heads, that kind of deters us from buying an electric car. And so it's something that we you really have to think about.
Although we're not against electric cars as such, I mean, we have to accept the fact that that is the future. But for now, spending that kind of money, I feel like you can get better cars for that price.
Okay, so this is something new that we tried out, and we don't know how it will turn out. So let us know what your favorite car out of the bunch was, and let us know if we should make more content like this by probably just hitting the like. And so we'll do more videos like this.
Yeah, don't forget to check out our last videos. I'm sure you like them, and be sure to comment down your thoughts on whether you like the cars, and if you were given the choice, would you buy any of these cars, and what would you buy? What was your favorite hatchback from 2020? Do let us know down in the comments.
With that being said, we will catch you guys later. Goodbye.
Adios.